What was the most NSFW thing your teacher did? I don't remember her name at the moment, but my 8th grade science teacher wore a black leather bodysuit and the whole cat get up, ears and a tail, and simple face paint, for Halloween. I think we dissected something. Talked about how she gave her excited puppy hand jobs to calm it down. Didn't see much of her after that. I was taking a bio test in college and a girl had a pretty interesting tattoo on her shoulder half covered by her top. The professor walking around saw the half tattoo and pulled down her top slightly to see the rest of it without asking. She was shocked and half the class saw and he snapped out of it and knew. He ducked up and just said nice, then walked to his desk. I'm pretty sure she just wrote it off as him being quirky and decided not to tell the board cause he wasn't suspended or anything. My gym teacher in elementary school had sexual relations with one of our classmates' moms whilst in his office, attached to the gym, where he had a class of 2nd graders running laps. Catholic high school. He was our morality teacher, and the lead singer of a band with a sexual innuendo, so he's a real dual threat. He ended up being an assistant coach for our track team and went to one of my friend's graduation parties and they had sex. She was 18. Same guy also took me and 3 others to Hooters on a trip to a track meet out of state. Got too drunk. Got the waitress's number and we had to drive the short bus back to the hotel for him. Had a French teacher that brought in a French woman, prostitute, to speak to the class in French. Sat at the front of the class, on top of a desk. Short skirt. We learned a lot that day, but none of it related to the language. Told the class at an all-boys Catholic school that she gave up giving blowjobs for Lent and that she misses giving it. This was way back in the 70s when overhead projectors were commonly used. One teacher, charmingly referred to as sandbags, frequently did not wear a bra on warmer autumn and spring days, but it was always cool in the classroom. She would lean over that bright surface and light up the pointy works. It was absolutely glorious. A teacher at my high school sold weed to a student and also had sex with him. My teacher and the principal were in the closet making babies and I saw one of the babies and the baby looked at me. Put too much sodium in a 4L beaker of H2O. It exploded in spectacular fashion, emptying the water onto the ceiling, where it fell all over her and soaked her blouse. She had nice nipples. Sorry for the formatting. I'm on mobile, but this story is ducking crazy. I had this English teacher during my sophomore year who I actually looked up to before the incident. He was funny, a good teacher, had a pretty cool beard, and was pretty cool. There was also this girl in my class who I thought was really pretty and I had a bit of a crush on. My teacher and the girl got along really well, and honestly it made English class really fun. Fast forward a year, and that same teacher was arrested for having sexual relations with a student. No name was stated, but everyone knew that it was a pretty girl in my class, especially since she moved out of the state that year. It turns out that the teacher wrote a ducking contract to give the girl a B in the class in exchange for sexual favors. He even left a note on her desk with candy that said, and I quote, "I would smash you into thin powder, mix you with water and drink it." The teacher's wife, who also taught at the school, was pregnant at this time and prematurely went into labor when the news broke. I don't think they're married anymore. Since this was about 5 years ago, I stopped looking up to him after that. Edit. Thank you for the silver. Now to see this on some YouTube channel with a text-to-speech bot reading it. My photography teacher in high school decided to use a developing lab for his personal project, but left the negatives behind in one of the projectors. That day, several photos were printed off by students and pasted up on the walls around the school. They were of the teacher and his girlfriend in various phases of copulation, some of which included suspension bondage play and many close-up penetration shots. He lost his job and was subsequently run out of the district. Coincidentally, this opened up a period for me so I could join the new breakdancing class for pay credits. My school was pretty fun. The band director had sexual relationships with 3 different girls at the same time. One was 18, the other 2 were minors, and the chorus teacher embezzled $40,000 over 5 years. My German teacher showed us a video of how to skin an alligator in class. Really ruined appetite for lunch. In high school, my cheer coach was an active porn star. She was actually a really good coach. We went to nationals and were the first team from our town to place at state. It was honestly awesome. Guys fell all over her and she used it to upgrade our rooms at hotels and get extra meal tickets because we were all poor kids from a border town. The best part was when it went public we were featured in National Enquirer. Honestly, she was the best sex ed teacher anyone could have had, but it wasn't like she taught us how to be sluts, just like answered more stuff about our anatomy and debunked a lot of the high school rumors that always went around. We all still keep in contact. It was a shame when the town found out they actually shamed the duck out of her and she really didn't deserve it. There was one teacher who would get really close to the female students when talking to them and stroke their hand and stare really intensely at them. He seemed to do it more with the socially awkward girls. I guess he thought they were less likely to say anything. He was once found handcuffed to a student after school had finished for the day and managed to play it off as a joke gone wrong. The sad thing was he was an absolutely brilliant teacher. People loved his classes and because of that people were less likely to bring up what a creep he was. I was taking the SAT in 7th grade. It was some advanced program in Pinellas County, and the lady who was overseeing the test at the site was handing out papers and randomly said, "Glad there aren't any Mexican kids in here." It was really weird, and all the kids just stared at her until she awkwardly continued handing out the test. Not a teacher, the principal ducked a special ed teacher in front of a very special ed student who just so happened to be rigged with a camera for some reason. Long story short, both resigned and not that many people know about it. I guess there was an NDA. Didn't make the news or anything. Kinda strange. Went to Catholic school. A young, early 20s, history teacher would always smile at me and knew my name. He taught freshmen my junior and senior year. Kind of creeped me out, but being a good Christian I was polite. I went to a commuter school, lived in a major city, and my first week of college I ran into him at the bookstore. He actually grabbed my waist from behind and held me. He told me how excited he was to see me and asked if I was interested in going out with him. First words out of his mouth, "On a date." I was shocked. Personal space didn't exist. I said I was seeing someone and quickly apologized, and he said, "When that ends, here's my number, call me." He didn't realize the two people who I was with were girls from my high school. We were all creeped out. He ended up marrying a former student of his 6 years later. Had a youngish female sex ed teacher in grade 8 who stated that girls can ejaculate while orgasming. When questioned about it, she described her own experience with the phenomenon of squirting. The boys in the class kept asking for more and more detail. She didn't last long. In high school, one of the teachers would buy weed from the janitor and they'd smoke together with a few guys that were in 12th grade. It was a small group that trusted each other and would get high during lunch in the far end of the student parking lot. I found out that a few years after graduating, one of those students was arrested for international drug smuggling. Lol. Spanking it to porn on the computers at the school library. Back when the internet was still reasonably new and not in every household. He should have picked a time where he was sure everyone was gone, cause he got caught by 3 students. In Australian high schools we have form classes where you get to read the daily news and the roll gets marked off for the day before you go off to your subjects. My grade 8 form teacher was hot AF and always dressed quite provocatively. She was very popular among the boys at that school. She got fired after getting caught blowing a pair of grade 12 guys in the art block. They were both 18, so the law didn't get overly involved. I was extremely jealous of those lads. In college, one of my professors had the class play the fashion or porn game. Google it. You're shown a small piece of an image and you have to guess if it's pornographic or from a fashion shoot. Once you guess, it reveals the rest of the photo, and if you get it right you move on to the next picture. We were all well over 18 and got a laugh out of it. But it was definitely a unique experience when we inevitably got one wrong and a large NSFW image was projected onto the classroom wall. She ducked my dad. I'm homeschooled. Operating the bandsaw without safety goggles. Small town, small school. This teacher got one of his students pregnant. Ended up marrying the student's mom. They passed the kid off as their own. Then he became principal of the high school where he met his kid's mother. Ugh. Edit. Trying to fix the drunk spilling. Last year of HS we went to Montreal for a few nights for our senior trip. The chaperone assigned to my group was our AP physics teacher. and this was his first year at the school. Younger guy. I had taken advantage of this guy in AP Physics all year long, but not in a terrible way. The class about propulsion, I convinced him to let us strap the model rocket engines to twigs and other scraps. Another class turned into an actual drag race on a farm road, etc. I just basically turned all of his lessons into the most ridiculous experiments ever, and he would just go with it. I don't know if he was trying to gain favor so I wouldn't duck with him as much, or if he was just close enough in age that he wanted to seem cool. But he brought me and a few friends to a strip club one night in Montreal and bought us drinks all night. Didn't concern me at the time, but it's pretty weird when I think back on it. My biology teacher in 8th grade brought her own dildo to class to demonstrate how to put on a condom. The school had more than enough wooden demonstration phalluses. She then went on to explain to us that she liked the ribbed condoms the best because they stimulated her G-spot the best, and proceeded to show us on a diagram where the G-spot is, which isn't bad. But I don't want to know about your condom choices. Junior high pay teacher coach sold anabolics and got busted in a sting. Wear a black, lacy thong and make a point to bend over in front of me several times. I didn't go to a very good school. My female drama teacher in grade 12 once wore a set of plastic breasts over the top of her clothes and gave us all the shock of our lives when she entered the classroom. I also went to a private Catholic school, so that's double NSFW. Had a history teacher who was really into Revolutionary War reenacting. During that block of our education he would come in one day in period attire, take class to the auditorium and fire his flintlock musket so we could hear it. For my class he accidentally loaded a bull in with the powder. He pre-made his cartridges, and when he fired the clock above the exit exploded. Was pretty awesome. Went to office hours for extra help and we were barely working for 5 minutes, then he touched me on my cheek and thanked me for my professionalism. Never packed up my it and left so fast. My one male homeroom teacher went into detail on how his wife and him didn't have a sex anymore and how they were on the verge of divorce. Oh, and that he has a vasectomy. We were all 12-13. Allegedly had a different girl for each graduating class. He would groom some of them for years in advance. Once they turned 18 and graduated, he ducked them. He also allegedly used to smoke weed with members of the athletic team he coached. Got assigned last year and had the cojones to sue one of his accusers. He had of course moved on from my school after years of this behavior being the worst kept secret in town and was working at another school on the other side of the country. 7th and 8th grade science teacher wore a periodic table of elements t-shirt when she taught the chemistry section of our book. She thought it was cute, but when she bent down to point at something in the book I saw that while the table looked normal, with the elements in generally the right places, every element where her boobs were supposed to fit into the t-shirt was silicone instead of the actual element. So very clearly a joke t-shirt that she didn't realize was a joke. Shirt was ruined when she helped out one of the stupider students and a test tube exploded. Same teacher took us to a local spring for a chapter on water conservation and wore a very small bikini when we all went for a swim in the spring. Me and 2 friends played the kissing game with a teacher. We were 8 years old, only lips but still crazy to think about it. I wasn't there when it happened, but she went on some big tangent about how she thought race mixing was awful and she'd be mad with her son if he ever brought home a white girl. This was during class in high school. Particularly stupid place to say that kind of it. Idiot should have kept it to herself. It's funny because I'm in an interracial relationship and I would absolutely love to come across her one time and ruin her day just by existing. My English teacher when I was in year 3, not sure what grade that is, I was about 13, would wear ridiculously short leather mini skirts and stilettos. Like, I'm talking porno heels. Here, this was in an all boys school. Torture for a 13-year-old. She made me sit on the bin for the rest of the class because I farted. Once. A teacher in my elementary school moonlighted as a manager in a restaurant. He would often hire young female staff, high school students, to house sit for him and would intentionally leave all of his liquor easily accessible. He was later arrested for unlawful surveillance because he hid cameras in specific locations throughout his house to watch them use the bathroom and change and such. He is now in prison. Attempted to convince my parents to be part of his Amway downline. What a complete cunt. As a high school student, I prepared the samples used in dissection class in grade 12 biology. The samples were individually bagged in formalin, so the bags had to be cut open and each of the samples rinsed in the sink for a few minutes to get rid of the chemicals. I went to the classroom in the evenings. I was given a key. I had to clean about 30 of each animal. Frogs and worms were okay, but the worst ones were the cats because their fur took a long time to clean and I had to use dish soap. Giving stiff cats a shampoo then drying them off is a weird experience. I especially hated the sharks because the preservative mixed with the fish oil, turning it a greasy brown color, and that formaldehyde and fish oil stink stayed in my hands for days. Did they supply gloves? No. I was a good bio student in the 80s and that was my reward both in grade 11 and grade 12. Times were different then. Today they restrict the use of formaldehyde and formalin, so literally not safe for work. Had sex with a 14-year-old cheerleader. Had a teacher take a student to Vegas to go car shopping. Years later he got in trouble for fooling around with a student. The girl who went car shopping with him was a loud advocate of his innocence. My friend and I thought it was just an all-out clustercuss when we heard about it. My teacher in grade 3 had to answer a phone call during class at the back of the classroom and me and my buddy were being loud as duck. Teacher was getting pissed and trying to shush us. She ended up throwing an entire deck of flashcards at us from the back of the room. Missed completely and hit the boy with autism in the row behind us right in the eyes. Funniest thing ever. Until she got back from taking him to the office. Class was left alone for like 5 minutes or so and one of the other kids hid in a toy box we had right near the front door of the class. So when she came in he jumped out and scared the shit out of her so bad she started crying. She went back to the office after that with the student who scared her and nobody ever saw her again. She was fired for having a breakdown as well as giving the kid a black eye with the flashcards. Years later, a teacher who used to work with her but was no longer friends with her told me what happened, and it turns out the phone call was from her husband of 20+ years who had caught her cheating and decided to call her at school. She was so stressed out from that and what happened that she had a breakdown. Quit the board and is now a single mother of one who is on and off of opioids. Ended up having a different supply teacher almost weekly after that for the rest of the year. Good times, Mrs. Sebastian. Hope you're doing well. NSFW because throwing flashcards isn't safe at work. I had a teacher who, while teaching us economics in high school, would slowly but firmly rub her V against the corner of the desk. This wouldn't just be a momentary itch. The rubbing was both pronounced and prolonged. Elicited a few giggles in the backbench but just made me plain uncomfortable tbh. Blonde Spanish teacher, MILF, had huge boobs, never wore a bra, and was always cold. Oh so. Us boys never missed a class. 2 things. The same teacher. Same day. 1. She wore a super tight, wet somehow, white shirt, and had big ass tits with hard nipples very visible. Gave every guy a fat hard on. 2. Her husband called her during class. For some reason on speakerphone. And we all heard how her tight pussy got so ducked that he had to switch to anal. Anyway, I now understand why she was limping that day. SMH, I hate homeschool. Having 4th graders yell out the syllables in D&V. She was really hyped. I'm still confused. Both of these happened after I had graduated, but my boss having 2 kids in that high school, I heard what happened. The principal got caught on camera ducking a teacher in his office. Principal was forced to leave but still got his whole pay for that school year. IDK, what happened to the teacher? One of the ROTC teachers was ducking an underage student. He was fired. I went to a small Christian school. In grade 2 one of the boys brought nudie cards to school and passed them around. Our teacher, female, was choked, though I didn't know what was going on yet. She started yelling, "Is it what you want to see, boys? Is it?" She undid his skirt and it fell to the ground. She was wearing a slip underneath. She said again, "So is that what you want?" All the boys quickly and emphatically said no. It was not something a fellow would want to see. My sub-teacher was on his phone ignoring our rowdy class and got hit with paper ball and said, "I will punch you in the ducking head. I don't care about this damn job." The class was silent for the rest of the hour and I never had him as a sub again. She wore high heels to compensate for her height. No judgment. Just statement of fact, she was short and the heels were 5-6 inches. First day she slams the door and starts speaking loudly to assert authority. Again, no judgment. We were 16-18 years old and it was her first job out of college. This particular classroom has the teacher's desk on a raised step. She misses her footing in the high heels while talking loudly and tumbles into a bin. Same teacher a few weeks later is rocking back and forth, occasionally swinging her leg as she is talking and catches another bin with her heel and tumbles forward again. She was only embarrassed in both instances. No injuries. She eventually relaxed and realized we were not a troublesome class. High heels. Totally not safe for work. Don't know if it counts. But one time my German teacher, who wasn't the greatest with finding the right English phrases or words and such at times, said something to the effect of if you weren't jacking off in response to someone not doing their work or something. A moment later she realized the gravity of it and immediately covered her head in a pillow or blanket, dropped to her knees, and just kinda stayed that way at the front of the classroom while everyone laughed their asses off. Single best time in that class. Not cause of the subject. The other people were awful for a portion. This one teacher at my high school always had a coffee mug in his hand in class. Turned out to be liquor. They found bottles in the cupboard of his classroom. Not spicy at all. In fact, I doubt this is even NSFW, but it traumatized me and this post is giving me flashbacks. Teacher in her late 60s got changed next to me in the pool changing rooms. She was tall and I was stunted from health issues, so when I turned around I got almost a face full of her overgrown grey bush. Somehow had never seen a bush before up until that point. She would wear a short skirt every day, sit on a desk facing the class, and specifically me who sat front and center, and open her legs just enough for a peek but not a full viewing while she explained economics to us.